What's up guys, my name is Ace, and it's finally time to bring back The Breakdown. This is a series that I've been doing on my channel for the past several years now, but I haven't done any for World War II until now. And with this series, I take gameplay from you guys, the subscribers, and I break it down and analyze it, and share tips on what I would do to improve. Now, if you guys are interested in submitting your own gameplay to be analyzed for a future episode of this series, I will have all that information and details what I'm looking for towards the end of the video. One thing I have to mention before we get into this breakdown, though, is just a reminder of general respect in the comment section. With this series, people are putting themselves out there, they're looking to improve, and for many of them, they realize they're not the greatest player in the world. All I ask is that you guys keep things respectful and constructive in the comment section. If you have constructive criticism you want to provide on top of what I'm providing, that's great, that's totally welcome. But if you're going to be posting comments like, oh, this guy sucks, this guy's awful, something along those lines, this goes for the whole series, not just this episode or anything, you will be permanently muted on my channel, so your comments will never show up on my videos again. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the breakdown. And the first thing that I always do with the breakdown is I have a look at the class that they're using in the gameplay. With this one, he's actually using the Cavalry Division with Escalation for his basic training and a Type 100 with a Sticky Grenade and a Concussion Grenade. Now, personally, this isn't a class I would use. I think one of the reasons he's using Cavalry as well as Escalation is this gameplay was taken really shortly after that stuff was added, so it's all still brand new to the game and everything like that. So I'm pretty sure that's why he's using that. Personally, I would have swapped Escalation out for something like Scoped if I'm running an SMG so I can strafe a bit faster in gunfights. Or maybe something like Hunker so I can deal with explosive damage a bit more. Just generally, I feel like for this particular class setup, there's plenty of other perks out there that are going to be much more valuable to you in your gunfights than Escalation is. Now let's get into the actual gameplay itself, and the first thing I noticed, and I noticed this with so many of the gameplays that are submitted with this series in the past, so it's a really common mistake, this is centering. Throughout this gameplay, if you keep an eye on the center of his screen, so the center of his crosshairs as he's navigating the map, just pay close attention to where they are. More often than not, it seems like his crosshairs are in a place where an enemy just simply can't be, or really isn't likely to be. Oftentimes he's aiming very low as he's navigating the map, so he's looking at the ground in front of him rather than up to where an enemy could be, or if he's approaching a doorway or a choke point or something like that, oftentimes he's aiming off to the side for some reason, so he's looking more towards a wall, rather than being perfectly centered on that choke point where an enemy could likely be. Now, the reason centering is so important is if you're off target initially, now you have to adjust your aim to get yourself on target, then you aim down sight, then you fire your gun. Whereas if your centering's on point and your gun is already up and ready to go where an enemy is, all you have to do is aim down sight and pull the trigger. You're saving yourself quite a bit of time, at least in Call of Duty terms, when that happens. Now, the nice thing about this is it's something that's pretty easy to correct for yourself. All it requires is some focus and really paying attention to that. Anytime you're navigating the map, always be aware of the center of your screen, the center of your crosshairs, always be aware of that. Even if you're in a situation where you know there's no enemies, or it's highly unlikely you'll ever run into any enemies there, you want to get yourself in the habit of always having the center of your screen where an enemy can be. If you force yourself to focus on this and you practice that, eventually it'll just become second nature. You won't even be thinking about it. Your centering will always be on point. So I would say with this particular gameplay, that is the number one thing I would be focusing on at this point. The next thing I wanted to touch on with his gameplay is it appears that his sensitivity may be a little bit too high for him. Now, the evidence for this is when he's turning his aim, whether he's just navigating the map or he's trying to actually shoot at an enemy, I'm seeing some pretty jerky movement. It's not really smooth, it's super jerky, and this is usually a pretty good indicator of a sensitivity being a bit too high. Now, my recommendation would be, first up, either drop your sensitivity by 1 point, see how it feels, play with it for a few games so you get a feel for it, but just try dropping it by 1 point. Either that or Control Freaks. Control Freaks, just in case you guys haven't heard of them before, they clip onto your thumbstick, which increases the range of motion of your thumbstick, and it allows you to make those finer adjustments to your aim a lot smoother and a lot more effectively. Now, I am a Control Freak affiliate, and yes, I do have a code to give you 10% off Control Freaks if you are interested in those. It's exclusive, I'll put it up on the screen there. But I've been using Control Freaks for about 10 years now, and I swear by them. I use them all the time. I have a hard time playing without them now, because it does help you make those smoother adjustments to your aim a lot more effectively. So I highly recommend those, especially in this case, and if he's already using Control Freaks, then I would say probably just try dropping your sensitivity by a point, and I think you might find that you'll be a bit more accurate in your gunfights, you'll be missing fewer shots, and you'll be dropping enemies a bit faster than you normally do. Now, one thing I noticed with his gameplay that I really like is in gunfights, he does try to strafe quite a bit, and this makes him a harder target to hit, and this is something that definitely works in his favor, so I definitely want to give credit there. Also, a couple other things I noticed about his gameplay that I liked is he seems to generally know where the enemies are going to be. Maybe not exactly where every enemy is going to be, but he wasn't really getting shot in the back at all in this gameplay. He always was keeping the enemies in front of him. He generally knew where to look, even though he wasn't centering too well. He generally knew where the enemies were going to be. And another thing I noticed a couple times in the gameplay is he knows when to get out of a situation. He knows when he's not feeling comfortable there, he just backs off. And I like that. That's something that I personally always have to try and work on with myself. I'm always way too aggressive and I just want it. Even though I know the situation isn't in my favor, I will often push into that situation. This guy does a really good job of backing away from a situation that he's not comfortable with. And with that, I think that's a pretty good place to end this breakdown, but now let's get into how to submit gameplay for yourself for this series. Now keep in mind, I can't guarantee everybody's gameplay is going to be picked and used in this series. I tend to get lots of submissions for this, and I kind of have to pick through and find the ones that I feel are going to be most helpful for the viewer, where I've got the most things to talk about. But let's go over the criteria and what I'm looking for in these gameplays. So first up, the gameplay has to be HD quality, so it's got to be at least 720p, preferably 1080p if you can handle it, but generally people will use like the built-in capture with their console, so their PS4 or their Xbox. Those gameplays will be just fine as long as they're 720p. I'm looking for raw gameplay only. I'm not looking for commentary over the gameplay. I'm not looking for music over the gameplay. Just raw gameplay, unedited. Try and also make sure you show the class setup that you were using the gameplay. Most of the time, as long as you capture the area where you pick your class at the beginning, I go through frame by frame, so I can just pick a screenshot of the class from there. Also with the gameplays, I'm generally looking for average to slightly below average gameplay. Gameplay where there's room for improvement, where you might have done something wrong, maybe it's not your best gameplay out there. I'm not looking for a bunch of V2 rockets. Now, every once in a while, yes, I will pick out a really exceptional gameplay, and I'll try and show what that player does right to help you guys improve. But generally, I find it's most helpful with this series to analyze a gameplay where there is room for improvement, where I notice something that goes wrong, where I see things that are common mistakes that people make, so that I can point those things out to help those people improve. Now, if you have some gameplay that meets that criteria, all you have to do is send a link to a video. It can be a YouTube video. Generally, YouTube videos are the easiest, so upload it to YouTube. Send me a link to that to the email address that I'll leave in the description of this video. And I'll be going through those and having a look, and you just might see yourself in a future episode. So that's pretty much it for this video. Big thank you to Working Class Jedi for the gameplay for today's breakdown. He's one of my very loyal Twitch followers, been around for a long time, and always shows a lot of support on the channel, so I really appreciate you sharing your gameplay and allowing me to break it down for everybody to see. That's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.